And now I'm going to say we're very happy to welcome the Reverend Karim Beldjilali.
Hi, good to see you all. It's lovely being in this community and being with you, and just celebrating with you, seeing you all. So hello from New York. And I am just kind of overwhelmed and excited to talk to you about the idea of, or the topic of power. I was struck this, as I prepare for these talks, struck by how broad, how pervasive, how fundamental um, the concept, the topic of power is. And at the same time, it's so real and practical, right? The news stories this week of our folks in Texas that are struggling with the fundamental real life implications of just not having power, and everything from water and health and all the fundamental things we take for granted, just being right there for all of us to see. And so I'm humbled to speak to you today and just cognizant of how broad this topic is, and to just attempt to encapsulate something of a gift to you, of a teaching for all of us. And so, I couldn't be talking to you over Zoom right now if it weren't for power. You couldn't be hearing me without the power, the biological power of your bodies, the millions of hairs in your ears, hearing the sound coming to you and translating it. And we're electrical beings ourselves, and all this astounding energy that just pervades and is, and brings to life everything in the universe. I'm just so moved by that, and so here I go. uh, um, I am curious for us this week, in this week's lesson and talk, about our relationship with power and how we may hold power in a sense of balance in our lives. And so, in looking at this topic, I thought, why not just tip this over and turn it over on its head and just look at it from an Eastern perspective? And so I decided to start looking at the Tao this week, and verses 28 and 29 specifically. And so, with this power that is everywhere, that is in so many forms, and is in a form through us, as us, it's moving through us, as us, in us. And each of us having our own then additional forms of power within us, the power of our own presence, the power of our listening, our words, even our physicality. We know that thoughts are things, and then they also have a power of their own. They are prayers of themselves. Prayers themselves are a power. And then we have, the worldly things, power at work, power in our community, authority. And so I keep going back to, what is the quality of our relationship? In verse 28 and 29 of the Tao, this is Jonathan Starr's translation, there's a brilliant insight. And it goes like this: those who look down upon this world will surely take hold and try to change things. But this is a plan I've always seen fail. The world is Tao's own vessel. It is perfection manifest. Cannot be changed. It cannot be improved. For those who go on tampering, it's ruined. For those who try to grasp, it's gone. Allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. Allow your life to unfold naturally. Know that it too is a vessel of perfection. And so, how do we interact with this awesome truth that it is unfolding naturally and at the same time a vessel for perfection? This life, our life, we being an extension, a form of this power, this truth. We start by looking at the first part. Are we looking down on this world? as the Tao advises us to consider. Those who look down upon this world will surely take hold and try to change things, but this is a plan I've always seen failed. Are we looking down upon this world? Are we sitting in a place of judgment? Are we detached, perhaps, or in spiritual bypass, or enraptured by all of the wonderful toys and distractions and gifts of this world that can just have us busy, numbed out, or just chasing them? Are we in this world? And I would suggest that's the first invitation. And the humbling piece about power is that it invites ourselves to be right where we are, grounded, not looking from above, but grounded. And there's even further good news that when we find ourselves like really on the ground, when things are really falling apart, when we are knees on the ground, whether because we're knocked down or maybe it's just by the great work that we've been doing with our spiritual work, right? Prayer, being in nature, all these things that feed us, that keep us grounded. That is the point of where we have the greatest connection and ability to access and recognize our power, the power that is moving through us. So for all the chances that we get, maybe we can just consider the uncluttering of the stories, the judgments, the expectations, the agendas we go into moment by moment, and allow ourselves to be freed of those. Freed to really experience and be grounded in the moment. And see this life as a vessel of perfection. Not looking to control it or exert some sort of power, but allow the power to move through us. And then this spurs on the second big question, which is, do we really know that our lives are a vessel of perfection? There's a question of trust and curiosity around what does it mean to be a vessel? We recognize that there is a race consciousness out there that tells us the world is a little beyond us, that we don't have all the power, or that we are lacking or limited and are always missing something and need to get something to make us complete whole. And we know that that falseness has a bunch of interesting agendas behind it, we'll put it that way. But the truth of who we are is that we are perfectly made, whole and complete. Even in our humanity, even in our foibles, perfection does not discount our humanity. This vessel is beautiful because of its perfections and imperfections. And so the question here about being a vessel of perfection is, do we truly trust that? Maybe even if it's momentary, do we allow ourselves to take that in? That right where we are, yes, grounded sometimes, and sometimes not. But when grounded, we know that yes, things are where they should be. Things are good. I have all that I need. This is an abundant universe in giving and receiving, in ebbing and flowing. And to remember the gift that is our lives, that we are alive. We have breath, we have good health, love, community. That this is a vessel of perfection. And that we're being asked to really stretch moment by moment, to be in this vessel of perfection and to consider the third gift, which is surrender. That we are in this state of evolution, right? Allow your lives to unfold naturally. Unfolding. It's not static. We will not need to take hold, but we can hold this letting go and just let it be. Show up and let it be. The Tao goes further and says, sometimes just as you breathe in and out, sometimes you're ahead and other times you're behind. Sometimes you're strong and other times weak. Sometimes you're with people and other times alone. To the sage, all of life is a movement towards perfection. Sometimes you're with people and sometimes alone. I think about that for the last year. Social distancing and the isolation. But we know that all of this, all these sages on this call today, that life is a movement towards perfection. And the exercise is to trust that, to keep stretching ourselves to trust that, moment by moment, to be grounded in that truth, not detached, looking from above, not judging, but just in this place of humility, as the opening prayer said, transform this to humility. Sometimes we're strong, sometimes we're weak, but it's still all a movement towards perfection. So that's the last thing for me is, all right, you want me to trust, tell me to be grounded. But I hear this last thing, which is allow our lives to unfold naturally. Allow. Trust in the abundant universe and allow. Trust in our inner guidance and our relationship with our higher power and allow. Maybe it's about doing less and allowing. Not trying to grasp, but allowing. It seems that power and surrender go hand in hand. That to have it move freely, flow through us, inform us, guide us, the higher power and the power within, and we'll pretend like they're not the same thing for a minute. That for that to flow, we have to just surrender. Submit. Thy will be done. And this is not a calling towards not doing or detaching. This is a balancing act. We still get to show up fully as who we are. We get to be all of us, perfection and foibles, and that is the perfection. And the invitation is just to keep surrendering. Surrender to the truth that I am here, all is well, and yes, life continues to unfold, and allow it to unfold naturally. So in these hard times and recognizing that we are coming upon a year of dealing and being in this pandemic, maybe we've exercised and have built up the muscle of surrender, or maybe right now, like in my case, it's feeling like a pretty sore muscle. It's been a year of surrender or attempting to. And yet, when maybe we consider the times of greatest joy for us in the last year of difficulty, maybe we can connect a line to the surrender that we practiced in that moment. That was the moment we let go a little. That is the moment where our expectations, our agenda had to shift, had to be flexible, reconsidered. Sometimes you're ahead and other times behind. Sometimes you're strong, sometimes you're weak. Sometimes you're with people and sometimes alone. All of life is a movement towards perfection. So the ebb and flow of life is perhaps our greatest reminder of the power and surrender that is called forward at every moment. And maybe that could be our gift of freedom to ourselves, that we can free ourselves to be in every moment now. We have to do less. Less is on our shoulders. Less is for us to worry about, to make happen, to grasp, to hold on to. All these things that perhaps if you're like me, you find yourselves sometimes exhausted by. And maybe there's just some letting go. Maybe that's the gift. That in trusting this abundant universe, we can stay grounded, knowing who we are, that life and our lives are a vessel of perfection, and allow the surrender. The Tao closes this by saying, when opposing forces unite, like the opposing forces, or so we think in our minds anyway, of power and surrender. When opposing forces unite, within there comes a power abundant in its giving and unerring in its effect. Abundant in its giving and unerring in its effect. Our minds are pretty funny little things. They don't like to put opposing things side by side. They like to put them at completely separate opposite ends of the room, right? It's like two boxers in their corners, and they're supposed to battle it out. But I would offer that this is a hug it out kind of situation, right? Where surrender and power work best and are in balance in our lives and operating in freedom. And we're feeling that trust and knowing that perfection. When those two opposing forces, quote unquote, opposing, unite. And that's our work. Because from there comes a power abundant in its giving and unerring in its effect. So that's, I think, what we're asked to practice. Balance. Power with grace and balance. Grounded. Knowing of perfection and evolving into further perfection. And surrendering fully to that. I know this is the truth for us. I know that this is the great gift that is our lives. And so it is. Amen.